Hello, welcome to this episode of Bright Ideas. I am Jessica Duemig, the host of Bright Ideas, and I am so lucky to be joined here today with Scott Glaser. Hey, Scott, how's it going?
It's going great. How have you been?
Living the dream, man, living the dream. I'm in South Florida recording today, not at my typical backdrop in Tampa. I'm actually at my grandma's house. So, little family engagement this weekend. So, um, just glad we were able to jump on and make the time work.
No, I appreciate you having me. It's always great to be able to kind of talk about, my path, how I got to where I am today. And then, if it influences some young folks, great. If it influences some other people thinking about the industry, and it's just, it's great to be here. And like I said, I'm located in Tampa, Florida, and just excited to have this conversation with you.
Sweet. Yeah, I love it. I always get excited to talk to people that like I'm friends with, but like I also work with. But like, so we have like professional, but also like, holy
Right.
crap, that's your background. Like, it's cool. So I'm pumped. We're going to talk about some really cool topics today. Scott is the executive director of the Union Home Mortgage Gasparilla Bowl, which started 100 years ago. And by 100, I mean 17, if my math is correct, 2008, as the St. Petersburg Bowl. So that's super exciting. I won't steal your thunder. Take us through your background, where you got started. I see that beautiful green and gold jersey up there behind you. Let's talk about that and then go from there.
Yeah. So, my journey really started with my family moving from Chicago when I was young. Not to get too deep into my personal life, but I actually had asthma. I was in the hospital once a week in the wintertime. Had a lot of problems breathing, and they basically told my family go somewhere warm. And so the Beverly Hillbillies, known as the Glazers, literally packed up from Chicago. I moved here in 1981 when I was 5 years old, and got an older brother, 3 years older, who they were signing up for baseball. And I was just there. And in Chicago, I was too young at the age of 5, but they had t-ball here. And so the group there was like, well, what about the little guy? And like, parents were like, oh, he's too young. They asked. And so I started with t-ball. And, I always kind of use the story of like a little white ball. It's just a baseball, right? But that baseball is really what took me on the journey until even today. Relationships, all the things that you hear about, time management, perseverance, and um, I ended up being fairly good at the sport. It led me through high school. It led me to USF, where I played baseball from 95 to 99. And I'll be honest with you, baseball was what got me to college. I'm the only grad in my family. Truly, the sport gave me the opportunity, but I made the best of that opportunity. And I'm not shy to say that. I didn't do the best academically, but I finished. I have a degree, which has opened some doors that otherwise wouldn't. But baseball taught me about relationships and how to put the time in. You play when you're injured, you travel when you're tired and sick. So, all that is transferable to what I do today. So, I played baseball 95 to 99. I had an opportunity. I was drafted by the Yankees and the Pirates in the late 90s. So I played 1 year with the Pittsburgh Pirates in the minors. The scouting director at the time released 11 left-handed pitchers, which is what I was. So 11 guys got released in one day in spring training. And so I just made the choice. I always said I was going to play the game until somebody tells me I can't play anymore. And that's what I did. I left spring training in Bradenton and went back home and said, all right, instead of grinding in the life of minor league baseball, I'm gonna grind in the minor leagues of life. And so I didn't know what that meant at the time, but I got a call from my prior academic advisor, and she actually asked me if I would be an academic advisor for our football team at USF. And I said, do you know who you're talking to? No scholar here. I'm a C guy, a couple B's, maybe a couple other letters.
That's all we need.
But I got by, and she says, the academics is important, but it's more about peer counseling. You've played, you haven't played, you've had a girlfriend, you haven't had a girlfriend. A lot of these guys would come in, and this was freshman and fifth year seniors for the football team. And not to stereotype, but some of them have personalities, came in from rough backgrounds, and they needed somebody who had already walked the walk a little bit. And so I spent a year doing academics. Again, not my path. But I walked across the street one day to our tennis complex, which I'd never been to after playing baseball there all the years. And there was a gentleman by the name of Rob Higgins, who's the current executive director of the Tampa Bay Sports Commission. And at the time, he was running around like a wild man, and we knew each other. He was a former men's basketball manager at USF while I was playing baseball. and he was running a tennis match there. So I said, "What are you doing?" He's like, "Oh man, I'm running this event." I was like, "Oh, what does that mean?" He's like, "I'm in event management." I go, "What's event management?" He's like, "Oh, we manage all the events for the athletic department. It's great." He goes, "You interested in the job?" I go, "I'll volunteer." I'm like, I don't need to get paid." And long story short, they had a coordinator position open. So I interview with our head, what was our head basketball coach, and then associate athletic director Bobby Pascal and Rob Higgins, and I became the third member of the team. Where for the next 5 years we ran event management for the University of South Florida athletic department, and then my career just kind of continued from there, where I stayed for the next 19 years. I stayed at USF from 2000 to 2019 before I was offered the position that I'm in today. And so,
I didn't realize you were there for so long.
yeah, you had 5 years of baseball. So, you have 5 years to play, 4 years of eligibility. I tore a muscle on my elbow my senior year. So I got a medical red shirt for a fifth year. So I was
Yeah.
there 5 years for baseball, another 19 for work. And then now I work out of the downtown Tampa area for ESPN, which is great. But that path, while I was there in that 17 years, I was fortunate. I received all my opportunities in one place. A lot of times, most of the time, if not all the time, you get an opportunity in one job or industry, and then you have to, move locations, move positions. You become the assistant director, the director, and so forth. I just happened to get all my opportunities in one building, really three buildings. So I worked in the athletic department for most of my career. For a couple of years, I resigned. I was asked to resign, and I went and worked for the then was called the Sundome, now the Yingling Center. So Sundome Inc. was its own entity on campus. And so I left athletics and I ran concerts in the golf course for a number of years. And then there was an athletic director that came in at the time, Doug Woolard. They changed the reporting structure at the leadership level, and he asked me if I would come back and oversee both. So I went, took some risk. I left athletics, started running, concerts and shows and that, and then was asked to oversee both. And so from a sports and entertainment, I got the rare opportunity of sitting on both sides of the fence. Usually you're kind of either just sports or just entertainment or just venue. So I did that for the next, I don't remember what year that was, but the next 5 years or so, I had both sides. Became a sport administrator, oversaw our construction of the athletic district, and then made a career choice from a family perspective to get out of athletics, young kids at the time, and got into the Alumni Association, where I was our associate executive director, and I was tasked with student and alumni engagement worldwide. Sounds big, it is big, but it's really just about, it was friend raising, not fundraising. Didn't have to ask for money. It's really just about connecting with people who love USF and putting events and award shows and football travel parties and tailgates for everybody who loved USF. So I did that for 2.5 years before coming to ESPN and running events for that.
So now you're at ESPN, ESPN events, and you are executive director of the Gasparilla Bowl. Talk to us about what all that entails.
Yeah, it's great. When I was at USF, I was in event management, was my primary role, where it's, really operations focused, but using football as an example. During a planning session for a game day, you're talking to the sales group, the donor relations group, the ticket staff, campus police, emergency safety, all these different, so you kind of get to steer the ship a little bit. And little did I know that what I was learning there would set me up for success here. And so, we're a team of two. I say team of two, we're a full-time team of two. We have many, many different partners, including yourself, who, play different roles come football season in August. But for me, every day is different. When there's only two of us, we kind of both dabble in a little bit of everything. I spend a lot of my time on the corporate partnerships, community engagement, trying to raise money for the game to cover the expenses. But I mean, it's right down to going to storage and loading cornhole boards for the next event we're doing. It's still what I've always prided myself on and enjoyed. It's a roll your sleeve up type industry. It's not just put a suit and tie on and go deal with some of the VPs and the community. But every day it's reviewing contracts. It's talking about ticket prices. It's talking about what happens if we get a great team selection. How's it going to sell? What happens if we don't get a great team selection? How are we going to fill the stadium? And and it's fun because it's while it's ESPN is who I'm employed by, our division is ESPN events based out of Charlotte, but the 35 events that we own are all ran locally. And so for us locally, they ask us to get engaged into our community and our market and do things that make our local people, interested in attending. So it's kind of a blank canvas. It's, meet the bottom line or exceed it, but good luck. It's your game, your community, do what you want. And so it's a lot of autonomy to be creative. So I love that.
That's really cool. I think it's really a really great concept when you get down to the nuts and bolts of the local aspect of such a globally known company, right? And it's really cool because, as I mentioned before, the now Gasparilla Bowl started at the Trop. It was one of the only, it was the first game, college bowl game that was played at a traditionally baseball stadium, which was a whole other, actually really really cool event. I always laugh because I used to talk to people and they'd look at me like I had 10 heads when I told them, all right, you're going to come out of the first base dugout and you're going to go to the sideline that's closest to you, and you guys are going to come out of the third base dugout, go across to left field, and your sideline's over there. And people at first, before they saw it, would look at me like I was just an idiot, like this girl doesn't even know what a sport is, let alone why is she running this game. But when it moved to Raymond James Stadium in, I guess, 2019 was when it officially made the move, 18.
18.
And then it changed over to a more Tampa focused Gasparilla Bowl. That's a huge thing. And a lot of people don't necessarily know what what Gasparilla is, what it means, but it's huge in Tampa. It's the Mardi Gras of Tampa. And they'll shoot me for saying that, or they'll kill me for saying that, but it really is. It's a very similar feel, and you guys have really embraced that.
Yeah, no doubt. And that's not just our game, of the 41, 42, 43 bowl games across the country. We own 17 of them. ESPN Events does. I have the opportunity to run one of them, and they ask you to lean in, like I said, lean in local, and figure out what's going to make people maybe get excited. And if you haven't been to the Gasparilla Parade in late January, it's an invasion of Jose Gaspar from a lost treasure from the 1900s, and as you said, like a Mardi Gras. I mean, people get excited. We're talking about a couple 100,000, 500,000 people come down to Bayshore. So the concept there was when with the prior staff before I was hired in 2019, they moved the game in 2018, and at the time and renamed it the Gasparilla Bowl. Was about how do you get the energy from Bayshore to Ray J, right? Like if I can just get a small percentage for people, and so we lean in to the mystic crew of Gasparilla and the Pirates and the nonprofit aspect of some of what the crews are doing. And so we everything we have swords in our logo, we have smoke in our graphics. There's cigars. There's a fine line between having a good time and partying like a pirate, but still staying true to NCAA football and athletics. But yeah, moving from St. Pete, again, I think was very smart. St. Pete was great from what I understand. A variety of different title sponsors, a lot of small businesses that wanted to embrace local as well. But at the end of the day, it's football in a baseball stadium. And so at the time, our primary conference agreements were, I believe, like Conference USA, the American, maybe the Sun Belt, all great conferences, but sometimes don't have the same alumni base as some of your larger conferences. And we've now transitioned into where we're primarily in SEC, ACC, and American. And you hear when you're looking for your own home, you hear location, location, location. And when you take Raymond James Stadium, you see what the renovations they've done, and they're talking about doing again to host another Super Bowl. And you can say Tom Brady played there and whatever other athletes. And then the date, right? Our date is pre-Christmas, and there's a lot of things happening in college football. And these coaches, they want to, if they're not going to be in one of the big bowls, one in the New Year's, 6 times or the CFP playoff, they're asking, almost begging to come to Tampa because they know they get a quality stadium. We got outstanding hotels. Tampa just continues to grow. And then they can be home with their families before Christmas. So I mean, it's a win-win-win, no doubt. I just happen to live in the area and be offered the position, so it's great. I do a little bit of the work, but it kind of creates itself.
Yeah, it's so fun. We really blew it out with the Pirates this year, and you guys went above and beyond. First football game ever to have end zones that were not, what is the designation? Not team specific, right? So it's we'll put up a photo of this. I'll get that from somewhere. And the end zones were treasure maps. I mean, come on.
Yeah, there's no, at least with our agreements, the non-ESPN event bowls have their own agreements, right? But as far as our 17 bowl games, we are not required to put team names in end zones, but you can, right? So some people pay for it. Some bowls have the schools send their stencils. But as you're talking about, again, trying to keep, there's a lot of things to do. People are preoccupied across the country with sports and beaches and theme parks and the holidays. And so not that an end zone is going to be the only reason people come to a game, but if you keep creating these small touch points to let them know that the game's fun, it's creative, you lean into local and national broadcast brings it up. And again, at the end of the day, we're creating these events not only for student athlete experience, but let's be honest, we're creating an event for ESPN by ESPN to put on ESPN. And so if we can have something fun and interesting, whether it's Billy Bayshore, a character, or it's treasure map end zones and national broadcasters talking about it, that's just another way to keep our name in the conversation. So yeah, that was fun. High Five is an agency out of Orlando, super creative guys. Literally just got an email yesterday I need to look at, but won 2 different awards for the creative side of it and then the national exposure. So pretty neat. That's one element of what we do every day.
Yeah, and so for those people who don't know, who have never seen a broadcast featuring anything at Raymond James Stadium, there is a pirate ship in the north end zone, and it is a full-on pirate ship. This is not a kid's toy. This has sails, this has cannons, a whole 9 yards, and tenants are not allowed on it normally, right? The Buccaneers, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, are the only ones until very, very recently who are allowed on it. But this year, the show open for the ESPN broadcast was filmed on that pirate ship with the character Billy Bayshore that was created by High Five, like Scott just mentioned. Super cool. Logistical. It was fun to make it happen, whatever, but on game day. But it was super cool. I mean, now you're talking a whole other level because Bucks fans and local Tampa people, they know the significance of that. It's cool because it's like, hey, that's my stadium, that's our home stadium. But for people who have never seen it, they're like, wait, are they on a pirate ship? Where'd the pirate ship come from? And then we lined the end zone or the team tunnels with pirates. We have cannons that go, not your typical like boom cannons. We have little what you would never believe are little cannons that fire off in rapid fire for kickoff, for touchdowns, for field goals, depending on the score of the game. And super, super fun. Just everything that can be piratey is piratey.
You hit it on the head. Again, student athletes want to be there because of everything you said. The fans want to go there. They want to be entertained, right? I mean, it's an event. They have a lot of options they can do. But for anybody who's watching or listening right now, it was kind of referenced, but not necessarily directly but Jess is our game producer. So as we talk about all these fun things, she's the one who actually gets to make it happen. So we get an idea, she stretches the idea, she talks about what's easy, what's hard, and then we say, all right, how do we put the best event we can on while staying true to college football? And so where I talked about us being a team of 2, but then we have third-party agreements that kind of kick in August, without people like Jess and Greg Wolf and Crackerjack Media and Beach Lion and VSG and TSA, I mean, I could go on and on. It's a huge, huge team. And college football is changing, right? And so we have to stay relevant. We have to stay fun. We have to have ways to get people in the seats and teams that want to be here. So all those things, and you lean in local with a little bit of Pirates, not a bad choice.
Yeah, and I
easier
love
than potatoes. Nothing against our dear friends, potatoes, things.
I think you just threw down the French fry gauntlet right there. We're gonna have to come up with our own like dump. I think we're gonna dump beads. What do you feel about that?
Yeah, that's great. We did not hand them out, so let's just be clear. But we did have, I won't say the team or the player, but we did have players smoking cigars on the sideline a couple of years ago. So
Yes.
It's a little piratey.
It was piratey, especially when you're a non-smoking venue. We were all like, do not in the control room. We're like, no photos, no camera angles.
But those,
um,
those are the things like that we make joke, but people, when you're at home or you're at the game, you just see and hear what you see and hear, and
right.
all the little things that you and I and the people on our team that have to work on security lists and traffic reviews, and there's just so much that goes in. The birthday party doesn't just happen. Somebody's got to put air in the balloons. Somebody's got to decorate
Right.
the cake. Somebody's got to order, all the little tchotchke things. And so that's what you spend doing all year long. And then nothing more gratifying that when the game's over, this is what I always tell our team and I tell myself, make sure you look up because, you've grinded all year long and then it's game day and you're just reacting. But if you can't take a step back, look up and hear the cheer and the roar and the vibration of the stadium, that's why I'm in it. Like at the end of the day, it's not about pat on the back or being at midfield for a presentation. It's, you just look around and whether it's, a family or father, son, mother, daughter, whatever it may be, and they're just truly enjoying college football and all the things you did, the concert before the game, the pirates on the field, the cannons, the flags running across after touchdowns. I mean, you playing a small role in creating memories and using football as a conduit to do it. So it's outstanding.
Yeah, from my perspective as the producer, it's so fun to work specifically with someone like you who has a little bit of a lot of that logistical background, right? You understand that someone has to put air in those balloons.
Right.
You cannot just make a wish, despite being owned by Disney, ultimately. You don't just make a wish and Tinkerbell comes and
Right.
grants it for you. And I am surely not Tinkerbell. So it's really cool when you talk about everything that goes into it because it is not just the game, right? It's a whole week beforehand. It's team arrivals and greeting the teams when they get off their charter plane. It's getting them with a FHP, Florida Highway Patrol escort from the excuse me, the airport to the hotel to everywhere else they're going to go in downtown Tampa, which is one-way roads and accustomed to big events, but not at Christmas time, right? Or not right before Christmas. And then, working with both hotels, figuring out how to entertain these guys that is fun and exciting, but not going to get them into any trouble, right? And giving them freedom to experience this. And a lot of that goes to the coaches, but a lot of it also falls on the organization of everything. And then ultimately, sure, inside the stadium kind of comes down to me and the team there from the show perspective, right? Certainly not all the logistics inside. Great team there doing that. But outside the stadium, where you bring in Street Laced and Greg Wolf, like you said, and the DJs and the concerts and the marching bands and the Gator Walk or the Night Walk or whatever, these traditions that the teams want to activate that you don't know till 2 weeks before your game, right?
Right.
And now all the planning you've done all year then says, cool, here's 17 wrenches, do it all again in 2 weeks. Great that you planned. Let me tell you about what happens when you have a plan, So it's so much more than a lot of people I don't know if expect is the right word, but then are aware of.
Right.
Even once we get in the same, that's a whole other thing. I could show you screenshots of my 24-page legal size script of every minute once those gates open. So it's just such a production and it's so fun to be able to be a part of it. And you guys do a tremendous job. I think it's really easy to say, oh, everyone wants to go to Tampa. Oh, who wouldn't want to go to Tampa at Christmas or in December? But let's talk a little bit more about the player experience because these kids are all football for 3, 4, 5 months, right? Win, win, win at all costs. And now we're in bowl season where, for all intents and purposes, your game, Gasparilla Bowl, doesn't have a implication on what's next necessarily. It's not the college playoff, right? It's not win and go on. It's win or lose. I don't want to say it doesn't matter because anyone with a competitive spirit, it matters.
Right.
But talk more about that student athlete experience because that's what it's really all about.
Sure. Sure. Yeah. They all want to play in the big game, right? They all want to be in the playoff, but if they're not, our job is, like you said, to create the best experience we can. I get the opportunity to welcome each team each year at the team hotel. You try not to be too rah-rah. They're looking at a little guy that played baseball, but as a former student athlete, I don't remember all the specifics of the game, but I remember my teammates, some of the shenanigans, a couple road trips. That one time I went to Tampa and got greeted by pirates, all these little things. But we always tell them, like, fifth year seniors or seniors, it's one more opportunity to compete on the field. Freshmen, underclassmen, it's an opportunity to you maybe you're going to get a little bit more playing time in this game than you traditionally would have in the conference championship. So it's a chance to maybe earn a spot for the next year. Coaches get to see their players one more time. They're getting to spend a little bit more time on campus to, just more touches, right? I mean, it's such a business now, the portal and NIL and all those types of things. So, we're just trying to understand that. Again, I stole this from my predecessor at the Alumni Association, but I say football's the conduit to do so much more. And so we have conversation every day about what can we do for these athletes from an experience. It's not just football. Yes, they're going to play on Friday, but when they come to town, we send them to Busch Gardens. That's our local theme park that everybody wants to go to. So some of these guys never been to a major theme park and rode roller coasters and seen rhinos and whatnot. We send them to MacDill Air Force Base, and it's a huge activation where they're literally getting on Black Hawk helicopters, to getting on fueling planes. They're holding bazookas and seeing bomb dogs, and so it just lets them know that there's more than just football out there. There's men and women serving our country. So whether they want a teachable moment or not, they're going to get it while having fun. And then we'll do a community day where we go to Feeding Tampa Bay. It's about two competing teams teaming up. That's what's going to happen in life when they get off the field. They're going to have to figure out how to be teammates with different folks. Yeah. And, box some food, have a little competition, spend some time with some kids. So the student athlete experience isn't just on the field. Yes, we want the cannons and the pirates and all that stuff, but as a community, and this isn't just our game, this is anyone, when they touch down in Tampa, Team Tampa, which is a term used here, Team Tampa Bay, we want them to know they're welcome. We want them, when they're done playing football, to go, man, I want to come back with my girlfriend or my wife or my family and go to the beaches and go downtown and go on the river walk. And so we try to look at everything that Tampa and Tampa Bay has to offer and think about our student athletes. It's tricky, like at USF, it's the same team, it's the same event for the most part every week, so you can get better Saturday after Saturday. We do this game one time a year. So if it doesn't go right, you have a whole nother year to plan and work on it. But and some teams want to do a lot of activities, and other teams don't want to do any. So we try to find that balance of what the whole week looks like and how much time they have with us versus time they have on their own as a team.
Yeah, it really is super fun, and Team Tampa Bay does phenomenal job. I mean, again, going back to all the different facets that are brought into it, brought into making an event like this happen. But you don't just do football, right? What started as just the Saint people, and I say just in the sense of only the Saint people under this group, has now blossomed and grown. So now you have, I'm looking behind you, the Shriners Children's Clearwater Invitational, the softball tournament, happens in February. So no rest for the wicked. You finish the bowl game in December. You breathe for 3 minutes at Christmas. Gasparilla Parade happens, and how is the Gasparilla Bowl not involved with the parade in late January? And then, oh, by the way, 2 weeks later, we're bringing in how many college softball teams for a premier, I don't want to say preseason because it is in season, but a early season tournament in what we call spring, which could be 80 degrees, 20 degrees, or monsoon here in Tampa. Talk more about that tournament, how it came about, and happen to be involved with that one too. So I know more than I want to talk about. For me, I want to hear from you. Tell us about how that came together.
Well, so this is we just completed year 6 of this event as it is under ESPN events. But if I kind of back it up a little bit and go back to my years when I was at USF, this event is held in Clearwater. We partner with the city of Clearwater, Visit St. Pete Clearwater, from a CVB perspective. But this was one of 4 softball events that USF softball participated in. So of those 4 events, USF Athletics, my team and I, we ran 3 of them. And then one event was a couple different names over the years, but essentially it was the Michelle Smith Invitational. Michelle Smith, two-time Olympic gold medalist, ESPN broadcaster, just stud, is from Clearwater, partnered with the city to create that event. Well, events are expensive, right? Your teams are coming to town. You got to pay for fields, and you got to pay for maintenance, and you got to bring bleachers in. You got to pay for umpires and hospitality, blah blah blah. And so she, in conjunction with one of our senior VPs on the production on the TV side, always had a conversation about how do we take this event, maybe televise it. And I'll be honest with you, all the events we do under ESPN events is because we televise them on one of the ESPN networks or the SEC network, ACC network, Longhorn network, some relation. And those dollars that are generated from that is really what pays for the event. So the conversation ended up being, predated me, was let's elevate this event, the Michelle Smith Invitational in Clearwater. Let's ESPN events come in and kind of, take over the event with Michelle Smith still staying involved. But now we bring in the production TV. So I brought my prior life at USF of running events at the same complex, no different than football. I ran USF football at Raymond James Stadium. I ran softball at Eddie C. Moore. So it was an easy transition when I was hired to then start to get more involved with this softball event, which now I provide the leadership for that. So this is a mid-February event. As you said, it's the top teams in the country. It's the FSU, Alabama, Oklahoma State. I mean, UCLA. This is 16 teams, 4 days, 40 games, all televised. So while football might, be perceived as the bigger sport, and certainly it's a revenue generator. And softball is in its own mind. People want to support women's sports. These teams are coming from all over the country. We're probably hosting about 20,000 people, 5,000 a day on average. And we've sold out in as quick as 15 minutes some years. Last year, I think tickets in 48 states, 3 countries, and Puerto Rico. So they're coming from everywhere. And it goes back to community. All these people, they're not all local. They're getting hotels, they're renting cars, eating in our restaurants. So that's part of the engine about how do we keep sports engaged in our community, create some viewership, and then also give the student athletes. Again, they're trying to, from an RPI, which is a rating scale for the season and strength of schedule. They're getting some high quality games early in the season that, if they win, will pay off as they get into postseason and trying to earn a bid. So it's an outstanding event. Sorry to go on, but I'm a bat and ball guy. I love football, but I played baseball, so softball is pretty close to my heart.
Yeah, and that event, I mean, I don't even know if you know this. So I actually started as a PA announcer at USF softball in 2005. And basically it was all happenstance. I was an intern. The PA announcer was sick. They said, "Oh crap, what do we do? Hey, any interns want to try it?" Brian Hope gave me pixie sticks and said, "Hey, go do this thing." And I was like, "All right, whatever. Sure, I'm an intern. I have to do something." So I did that. And then all of a sudden I was announcing at that tournament.
Yeah.
Back then. And then now I get to announce some of the premier fields over there, which is super, super fun. And again, it's very cool for the teams to have an opportunity to play teams, maybe, yes, for RPI, but also teams they never would have traveled to play, whether they're at a conference. It's just a cool experience. These star softball players who are on TV, on the SEC network, on what used to be the Pac-12, I guess, but are now, super competitive as always. But the chances of some of these teams ever playing in Alabama or UCLA, it's just not going to happen except at a tournament like this. So the exposure alone, I mean, and now, and really, a lot of this was going on before Athletes Unlimited was really a thing, before there was even a real opportunity to play at the next level outside of the national team, right? So these women are now having these opportunities to be showcased with sponsorship dollars behind it, which is really cool. I know we talked with Sprout. I went to one of the panels that you guys hosted in conjunction with the Wise group last year ahead of the tournament, and we had the executive from Sprouts Farmers Market talk to the group about the importance of women's sports. And I don't want to get on some soapbox and start in on that because it's so much more than that. But it is very cool to see people finally getting on board. people being fans are always on board. That your point about selling out in 15 minutes it's an understatement because these softball fans are nuts. They're not quite at the level of hockey fans, and they're not quite as intoxicated as lacrosse fans. However, they are absolutely passionate. I saw people sitting there in rain that I was like, are you kidding me? Like, you don't even have a kid in that game. Like, why are you sitting here in the rain in Florida? But it's really cool to see it happen. And especially to have it happen again in the Tampa Bay area out in Clearwater, right over the bridge. Beautiful facility at Eddie C. Moore. Great staff running it from the city side. And then obviously bringing in the whole ESPN family of everything to make it all leveled up is just, it's an incredible opportunity for the players and pretty neat for the fans too to see, I think, the production quality and what goes in. Again, like you said, no magic wand. It's just like, here's what goes into actually putting a production on the television that we so quickly turn on and off, you know?
Yeah, like I said, just as comparison, because it's all I know, football, these teams do this every weekend. They're going to come into an NFL type stadium, big D1 type stadium. They get the escorts, they stay in the hotels. Yeah, everybody's kind of, I say, used to it. Softball, not to say that these girls don't travel like that, but sometimes it's a little bit different. And then the fan, like I said, the fan comes in and they're used to maybe seeing one game. We're doing 4 fields on 2 sites all at the same time. There's 2 production crew, there's 3 crews, 2 sites. So 2 years ago, unfortunately, we got rain, and we played 19 of 40 games, 21 of 40 games, 19 were rained out. Well, nothing, not to pat myself on the back, but that's a lot of conversations. Like with football, I go, "Hey, coach, it's raining or there's lightning. Go to your locker room," and they just wait it out. This is outdoor. It's turf is clay infields. It's safety. It's parts. It's lightning. It's getaway day for flight. There's so many moving parts. But again, for me, I just go back to my experience at USF. Overseeing the event management side and 18 19 Division I sports and softball and soccer and baseball and tennis. We dealt with all that. I just had no idea that I was kind of in training to do what I'm doing today. And so it's a jack of all trades, master of none, be able to dabble and delegate to the experts when they're in the room. And football, softball, gen on basketball. We have great partners. It's just fun to be able to steer the ship a little bit and give some opinions. And when they're no good, they tell me it's no good, and we move on to the next ideas. It's a lot of fun. But I can tell you too, not only ESPN is all in on women's sports, especially softball. The city of Clearwater, I think this is public knowledge, but we'll play 2 more seasons in the current facility as they are. But the city believes in it so much, the economic impact, the experience of student athletes. We're supposed to have a little over about $15.5 million renovation to those complex. So by doing that, it's probably more attendance, which means more economic impact, which means better quality women's sports being televised. Right now, we're limited on the venue, on the size and the quality. Not to get into details, cameras filming through chain link fence versus screens suitable for TV, camera positions. So we're still a little limited, but everybody's pouring into the sport and pouring into these young ladies, and it's just going to get better and better.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because there's another piece of this that people maybe don't understand or are just not privy to, not privy, but just don't know. This event specifically is played at a public facility, right? And one of the coolest things is I say we because I feel like I'm part of the team, but we bring in the 3-score adult men's slow pitch softball team. They are great. They're called 3-score because, and I never knew this, a score is 20 years, 3-score is 60. You have to be over 60 to play in that softball league. I get told every year that, do you know what 3-score is? Like, I do now. Like, great, thanks. But again, it's that community involvement. And I would venture to say that if this tournament was not held at Eddie C. Moore, with the engagement of these people, the economic impact on the Clearwater area, because you think about it, right? You're talking about a 25-person team plus coaches plus staff. That's hotel room nights. right? Times at least 2 nights, probably the way the tournament works out. It's kind of a rolling come in, go out, come in, go out. Lots of room nights, lots of food being eaten, facilities being used, all that. So the economic impact, if this event was not happening at Eddie C. Moore, those renovations most likely wouldn't be happening.
Yeah, no doubt they do a tremendous amount of events there, but this is the anchor event. Like I said, with 16 teams, it's 25 per, it's 480 in their official travel party. Some of them bring extra staff. ESPN alone, runners, cable runners, IT support, camera operators, talent. We're close to 200 employees. I'm the Jen and I are the lone local folks here, but I'm literally from Bristol. People are flying in, so they're renting cars, they're doing catering, they're renting tents for hospitality. But don't kid me, we're asked somewhat regular about moving the event. Like, hey, why don't you go to this bigger venue or Northfield? You can sell more tickets. But I go back to partnerships. The city and Michelle Smith and so many others have been with us for so long. And it's a true partnership. And so we like where we're at. It's intimate. The intent was originally for it to be somewhat intimate softball, great teams. We continue to work on the fan experience. To be honest with you, there were years where we probably had more tickets in the market than we're maybe we should have. So we decreased capacity on purpose to allow, because to your point, there'll be people set up at 6, 7 o'clock in the morning for 9, 10 o'clock because they want to get their seat. It's all general admission seating just based on the number of games and amount of time you have to empty a field or not. So it's more of a festival style type event. But it continues to grow, and we were already locking in teams for next year for 26, and then we'll start 27 again. Teams want to be here. Actually,
Yeah.
Jack, Jack Healy, who works on our PR. He was at where was he? I think maybe in Tallahassee. Went and stopped by just coincidentally the FSU Virginia softball game and saw some of the staff. And we can't invite everybody back every year. There are some staple teams that started the event with us, the Florida States and the UCLA's, and been a big resource over the years. Like Virginia was like, like, wait a minute, I think it was Virginia Tech. Why aren't we invited again this year? So teams are like, they want to be here, but we got to provide some options and some different teams, and then bring them back in a year or so. So anyway, great.
Not a bad day when people are knocking on your door to get in there.
Well, that's what you hope. Again, we just got back from switching back to football. Same topic, but in football as an example, not to put words in their mouth, but it was said to me. I'm a big believer. If you don't believe it, you just don't say it, right? If they don't like your event or your venue or you, they just say nothing.
Sure.
We met with the commissioner of the ACC from a football perspective and the associate commissioner. Like, look, our teams want to be in Tampa. So again, if they're not going to play in a playoff or a New Year's Six game, they go. The minute Selection Sunday comes, teams are calling them on their cell phones all day long about going to Tampa. And so softball is the same thing, so we're fortunate. Again, I say location. We have great partners. We have great venues. We typically have great weather. And so teams know that. And these teams recruit the area. That's another thing. All sports recruit the Bay Area because we can play sports year round. So we certainly have a recipe for success. And Team Tampa knows how to put events on. And so it's not just, again, Jen and I, we lean into those resources, the Sports Commission, the Visit Tampa Bays, the Visit St. Pete Clearwaters, and some of the other groups we talked about who touch all the, they're involved with the Bucks and the Rays and the Rowdies and the Lightning and USF. And so we all, I hire a lot of my former staff at USF to work game day for football because I trust them and they know it. So try to keep it in the family.
Yeah, and I think that's a really great kind of concept, and I know we're getting close to time, but I do want to touch on this, and it's been a common thread through a lot of these chats that I've had is this relationship building. This not only, and you touched on it a little bit with your starting back with your relationship with Rob, kind of getting you into not getting you in, but kind of putting the bug in your ear about, hey, have you thought of this? And then your relationship with all the people at USF who have now carried over into these different events, but then also your relationship with the teams, even going back to, look, you don't bite the hand that feeds you, right? The FSUs, the UCLAs who helped start and bolster this tournament and gave it a lot of clout early on. when it wasn't, oh, 17 out of the 20 teams coming are top 25 teams, right? Or whatever those numbers are now, probably all of them this year. But those relationships really solidify how important, like, and really how small this industry is, for as many teams and as many people as it takes to run an event, as many people as it takes to come um the into making any of these events happen. These relationships are what really matter, and they continue on whether you realize the impact you're making on people or not.
Yeah. I convert, for me as a former baseball player, like I use baseball as my way of approaching every day, right? Like one pitch at a time, get one out at a time. If you win every inning, you can't lose. Get along with everybody between the lines. What you do outside of lines is separate. So, not that this is directed only at young folks, but if young folks happen to see this, and my kids are on their phones a lot, and I know it's a big topic, but you have to be able to have personal relationships and connect with people. And if you'd have told me I was doing that when I was younger and I first started out, I didn't realize it, but I was meeting people at basketball games I was running, and it was the donor. I literally just had a call with a former USF baseball player, and his aunt is one of the biggest donors at USF. I'm sure you know the Loomis, right? And so just those relationships. I used to look at our leadership, our athletic director, our deputy athletic directors, and I would see them pick up a phone and call somebody across the country that somehow they knew to get a quote or to get a design or get whatever. How are these guys doing this? All of a sudden you fast forward and I look back, 25 years. I got a text last night at 10 o'clock from Michael Kelly, the athletic director at USF, because USF just beat Florida in baseball in Gainesville 13-2. He also happens to be on my executive committee. And so, you build these relationships over the years that now, again, going back to that top kind of team Tampa, if you looked at our executive committee, our sales committee, our advisory committee, our contracted game day staff, 9 out of 10 are all people that I've known over the course of the last 25 years. I'm literally in the same office as Rob Higgins, who was with me at USF, Claire Lessinger, who was the head volleyball coach at USF, who's now with the sports commission, and then Santiago. Yeah. There's just so many different people that have relationships, and you get down to the coaches, and it doesn't stop. Like I built a pretty good relationship with FSU's softball coach, and recently learned that she was diagnosed with breast cancer. And so a text for me, an email for me is not going to change anything other than know that she has an army behind her and she took the time to respond. And again, it's not about me, but if she didn't like me, know me, respect me over just the last 2 or 3 years, I've really been involved with softball. She's like, who's this guy? So it's just, you continue to build, never burn a bridge. I don't tell many people this because it sounds arrogant, and I truly don't mean to be like that, but the position that I'm in right now as executive director for football and softball is a result of relationships. It's not that I didn't have the ability, but our VP, Clint Overby, when this position became available in 2019, called 4, 5, 6 different people in Tampa. I was working with the Alumni Association, had no intent of ever leaving USF. Everything was fine. And he talked to 5 different people, and 5 different people threw my name out. And to the point, because those are people I had relationships with. It's half the people I just named now. And they're like, why wouldn't you get Scott back in sports? Or why not this? And a relationship guy. And so for me, I never thought it would be true, but 100% starting with that white ball. Then it came opportunities, outwork everybody that you're up against, build relationships. And if it doesn't work out, at least you left it all in the field. It's no different than a student athlete, right? So that's how I approach what I do. But relationships, no doubt, number one thing for me. I could teach you to do my job. I can't teach you to have good relationships.
I love that. And that's a perfect spot to end. However, I do want to give you the opportunity to say, how do we connect with you? How do anyone watching, like, obviously we're always looking for volunteers for game day and the different events. We're looking for sponsors always, right? These are great events, huge. Obviously you heard all the details there. Should they email you? Should they go through LinkedIn? Obviously I'll put whatever links up in the write-up that you want me to do.
All the above. If Gasparilla wise, I mean, both events will lead back to me, but if you wanted to use like GasParillaBowl.com, any of the social media, at Gasparilla Bowl. It'll link back to me or to our team and can get it to me. You can email me, scott.glaser@espn.com. But it's about finding good people, right? It's the traditional time, talent, and treasure. Some people have a budget and they want to advertise. I mean, the bread and butter for us is corporate sponsorships and ticket sales. Is it a revenue generator? Sure. But all that revenue goes back to creating a student athlete experience. We have a Gasparilla Bowl Gives Back program where we support nonprofits. So it's about generating money and then investing that money back into the event. But if you don't have the budget or the need for brand exposure and hospitality, the time and the talent comes in. Some people want to volunteer because they're as passionate as I am about local community. We have a fishing tournament. We do beach cleanups. We do a variety of different things. But at the end of the day, it's about relationships. And if you don't have the means, maybe you have a relationship with somebody who does. The car dealer, the health provider, whoever it is that might be looking for ESPN to expand their brand, impact student athlete experience, and then just grow together. If it's not mutually beneficial, then it's not beneficial at all. So it's a two-way street. It's a partnership for sure. Somebody told me one time, if somebody gets up from a deal feeling more uncomfortable than the other, then the deal is just not going to work. So, I'm not looking for 1 year deals. I'll do a 1 year deal, but the point is we're looking for a long relationship to build together.
I love it. I'm just taking that. I got to write that down. If it's not mutually beneficial, it's not beneficial at all. Man, what a way to live. Love it. Love it. Love it.
Beneficial for that 1 year, but after that, it's over, right? Yeah.
Hey, again, leave it all on the field, right?
That's it. You got to help write the book, not read the book.
Oh, touche. All right. Well, thank you, Scott. This has been a pleasure as always, but even I learned something. I did not know you were at USF for as long as you were. I didn't know Rob Higgins was at USF as an event manager. I had no idea. So maybe we'll get him on this podcast a little later on. But thank you so much for taking the time. I'm glad we were able to schedule it. You've been watching or listening to Bright Ideas. I am Jessica Duemig, the host. Make sure you subscribe and check out everything to come.